former NBA player, co-host of the All the Smoke podcast. That's the #1 basketball podcast in the world right now, by the way. They get all the top guests, and they got the best conversations happening on that podcast. I got to admit that. Gilbert's got a really good podcast, too, but he doesn't got the attention that Steven and Matt got. Anywho, Steven Jackson. And by the way, shout out to Steven Jackson. He was in my hometown of Memphis, Tennessee the other day as well, and I really appreciate that. Steven Jackson said some things about James Harden, how James has been moving throughout this offseason, and clearly he doesn't want to be a part of that Houston Rockets organization right now. Maybe that could change. Obviously it could, and hopefully it does. I really hope James Harden gives that Houston Rockets team with John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins a shot. I really think they could do some things. Like, I think they could very well make it second round of the playoffs. Hell, with the Warriors not having Klay, they got a chance to get to the conference finals. What if the Clippers are a 4 seed? Or what if the Clippers are a 1 seed and the Lakers are the 1 seed, or the Lakers are the 4 seed, right? What if the Clippers and Lakers play each other in the second round? That means between Houston, Golden State, Denver, and a lot of other teams out west, there is an opportunity to get to the conference finals without having to play the Lakers or Clippers if you can land 2, 3, 6, or 7 out west. I'm just saying, if you're a Houston Rocket fan out there, it's not 100% over if you can get James Harden into that uniform and playing this season. I think he will. Maybe reluctantly, but I think he will. So Steven Jackson let off. I mean, he just unloaded on James Harden. And you know, he's been partying with rapper Lil Baby. And, you know, he's been clearly demanding trade. He wanted to go to Brooklyn initially. Then it was Philadelphia as well. And then it's Miami, Milwaukee. Hell, just get me out of Houston. That's pretty much been where James Harden is at with it. So here's what Steven Jackson thinks about some of the things James Harden did throughout this offseason with 2 years and a player option left on his contract. He said James Harden doesn't want to be held accountable. Mike D'Antoni is the worst defensive coach in NBA history. Ain't going to win ish. Ain't won ish as a head coach. He easy to run over. So James is trying to continue to be around close to D'Antoni so he can't be held accountable. The Rockets finally get a young black coach. A young black coach gets an opportunity, and you don't want to show up to camp. You don't want to play for him. How that look? And you wonder why every time a black coach get a job, they put him in a BS situation. Look what y'all doing. What a real one would do is go play for that black coach. He's talking about Stephen Silas, by the way, and make him look good and build with John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins, some real ones. But obviously you want to chase rappers around. Yeah, I think Steven Jackson went a little too far. I think the premise of what he's saying is I think he's on the right side of the fence in this one. I don't like what Steven Jackson said about blaming James Harden for the opportunities or lack that black head coaches have gotten in the league. You can't blame that all on James Harden. I mean, that's not fair. Reportedly, James Harden and Russell Westbrook co-signed Stephen Silas as their head coach. I don't know the truth in that, but that is a report that was out there in the atmosphere a few weeks back. That's not fair. You can't blame James for that. If he ain't happy, he ain't happy. He's given that Rockets organization many years of his prime. If he ain't happy no matter who's the head coach. I do think there's some truth to what Steven Jackson said in James Harden maybe not wanting to be held accountable on defense and wanting to go back to Mike D'Antoni, a guy that's literally let James do whatever the hell he wants with the basketball for the last few years. And, you know, there's been success. James has been the MVP of the league. That Rockets team is always competitive. Pretty much more times than not, they're competitive with Harden just being the great version of himself that he is. He's incredible. But you ain't winning a ring like that. The late, great Kobe Bryant and Tracy McGrady both said, you ain't winning that way. Keeping defenders in front of you that way and playing isolation ball at the top of the key is not going to win you a championship. I'm going to listen to those gentlemen. They know what the heck they're talking about in regards to basketball. And I agree, So, hey, I think Steven Jackson was right on the money with maybe James trying to take the easy way out, trying to go play for a coach that ain't going to hold him accountable. Steve Nash is young as well. He's impressionable as a coach because he's so young as a head coach in the league. That's the Brooklyn route. Obviously, we understand the Daryl Morey route. Daryl Morey has caped up for James Harden over the last few years. I mean, Daryl Morey worships James Harden. So from that standpoint, that's why Philadelphia makes sense. And I think when it got down to Miami and Milwaukee, James was like, I need to go somewhere else where stars are at. And I think that's how those two teams got brought up in the mix, according to Shams over there at the Athletic. I see where Steven Jackson's coming from. Again, when you bring up chasing the rapper around, I mean, it was technically, James was enjoying himself. He's a grown man. and he wasn't going to play much in the preseason anyway. You would love to have James in your locker room. I don't think what James Harden did last week is the worst thing in regards to being, in Vegas, in Atlanta, partying with his friend, Lil Baby. No harm, no foul there. But the fact that he demanded a trade, obviously, that's a big deal. It's the fact that he was partying on top of demanding a trade. I think that's where the problems come in at. And I think Steven Jackson made some valid points. Y'all let me know what y'all think about what Steven Jackson said and what I said as well in the comment box below. I thank you guys so much for the time. Love and support is what I don't take for granted. And I never will, by the way. Salute.